and especially when traditional school in the United States, pounds our creativity out of us,
Mm-hmm.
those psychic talents and natural methods to divine what's true subconsciously by using the subconscious mind, it gets suppressed and it atrophies. It withers away if it's not used. So there's something in our culture about the creative types, the fact that they are a type. Creative people aren't a type. Artists aren't a type. They're people who are singing their heart songs, right? So how
Right.
come there's some people are artists and some people are factory workers? Are factory workers singing their heart song? Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to them one by one. Let's hope they are. There are great inspirators like Earl Nightingale, who back in the 1950s was publishing gold albums, LPs, long playing discs,
Mm-hmm.
vinyl. And people were listening for the first time on phonographs to an inspirational speaker talking about what Napoleon Hill had talked about: conceive, believe, achieve, and not setting these limits, these self-imposed limits. And Earl Nightingale talked about basically singing your heart song in so many words and optimizing, being very clear about what it is that you want in life and then going for it. In other words, we will visualize our future.
Right.
And if that's positive, we'll have a great life. But if it isn't so much because of things that maybe happen in our childhood or our actual socioeconomic position that we're born into or fall into due to some travesty or misfortune, let's hope not, but it happens all the time. Could be happening any day to any of us. Let's hope not. But how people deal with that is very significant. And divination tools can help people who are traumatized emotionally by life events or personal misfortune to sort it all out, make sense of it. It helps to resolve tumultuous emotions. And it makes a real connection between subconscious minds. We all have at least one subconscious mind. Some models of psychology indicate more than one subconscious mind, which might be a topic for another day. Be that as it may, no subconscious mind deals very well usually with conscious mind. And that's what a lot of metaphysical research and practice deals with, is integrating and bringing together the subconscious parts of mind to consciousness, and then being able to talk to other people with their collaborative subconsciouses and consciousnesses about stuff. That's how healing works, how spiritual or psychic healing works, I should
Mm-hmm.
say. And we all know everything is energy, everything is vibrating. It's just so fascinating. It's all interlinked. And
It's
I'm so
just,
glad if I could help you in some small way.
well, it wasn't small. And, I still take that reading out and look at it. And periodically I can remember what this or that meant. And usually it's when I'm experiencing what you spoke about, referencing it. So I find it a very a very personal tool that I use. So, I think that you opened my mind in a lot of ways that weekend. And I enjoyed that.
Well,
And,
thank you so much for saying that. It's
well,
gratifying. And I could say the same for you.
we're both very strong personalities. So it doesn't always mesh well when people like us are, close proximity. And I mean, we even spent the night in the same room and everything was still awesome.
I know.
I
It's
loved
the
it.
ultimate test
It
of whether
is.
you can travel with a person.
Yes,
The other test is, can we choose a restaurant in 15 minutes or less that we both like? And we did that.
we did do that. And it was a fantastic choice.
It was.
So,
Oh, it was Southern barbecue. Would you agree?
pretty
Southern
much,
barbecue.
yes.
It was the real deal.
Yes.
Wasn't it Bubba's? Wasn't that the
It
name of the
was
place?
it was the grotto.
Oh, we went there next. That was kind
Yes.
of posh.
But
But
Bubba's was pretty
remember
cool.
when with and D'Antonio,
That's right.
the the stargazing dude.
Science
Mark,
guy. Yeah.
science guy, Mark D'Antonio. Excellent. Gave an excellent presentation at the conference
He was
on
brilliant with the
basically the history of
longevity
everything.
in 20 minutes or less. No, he was channeling Robin Williams. It was so hilarious. He was a great it was a great presentation, and he did a good job of keeping people up there and making sense.
He
Not
did. He
everybody
made
makes
very
sense
good points.
sometimes.
He's a true scientist.
True that.
But and I could say the same. I have a degree in computer information systems, a master's of science, so I'm a scientist, and I've practiced as a computer information systems person. So I'm a scientist, but so what? On a certain level, people put stock in credentials. I mean, I guess you have to, but as a psychic, I put a lot of stock in intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied psychology, but after I studied psychology as an undergraduate, I decided I don't want to be a clinical psychologist because, for one thing, I don't want to sit around and listen to other people's problems all day. I took psychology to learn about myself. But I also decided, as a discipline, as a study, psychologists don't agree with each other, and this disturbs me because it seems to me how we behave, how we act, how we think, how we feel as humans is probably governed by some major mechanism. And it was pretty obvious that none of these psychologists, and I'm talking about behaviorists under B.F. Skinner, I'm talking about Freudians under Sigmund Freud, and all of his disciples. There were Jungians under Carl Jung. Then later there were cognitive psychologists, including Abraham Maslow. That seemed the most reasonable kind of a model, which was basically a model of maturing. Your psyche matures over the course of your lifetime. At first you're born with, it's all about me, and by the time you get to be a senior, or perhaps before that, but sometimes in your 40s or in your 40s or 50s, you start to consider giving back to society. And according to Maslow, that's the top of the hierarchy. 10 out of 10, you've achieved psycho-emotional maturity. Congratulations. And I guess if you were into Zen, you'd be ready to ascend to the next plane, although I don't know how Maslow feels about Zen Buddhism. But as an eclectic, I like to integrate everything. I don't see any problem with taking cognitive psychology and blending it with Zen Buddhism, a little bit of Wicca, and a little bit of Western magic, and a little bit of ESP, maybe some ghost hunting, and Bigfoot, and blending it all together and coming up with some real head-spinning theories. I have no problem with that.
Well, it's a good thing because we talked about almost all of that over at one point or another since we've met, right? But I do agree with you that I think a blend is the way to go there also, because if you are so rigid that you can't contemplate anything else other than what's with you, then you've got you have other issues. It's when people talk about these exoplanets as an example, the whole mindset is that, well, that can't be, that's not possible. There can't be people, like us, and, if you're of different belief systems or whatever. And you can, because just because we have a creation story and a Bible doesn't mean that there aren't thousands of other planets out there whose inhabitants have their own creation story and holy text. It's not like this was the only show in town, in my opinion. And I'm a Christian. I do, or Christ follower. I'm not. It's a weird distinction that I make, but I am someone who believes the guy was who he said he was, who would like to walk with the love that he did. And he had a little righteous indignation and anger at times too. And sometimes that's a necessity to fix issues that are messed up. And I think it's really kind of a neat thing to look at it that way.
No doubt, no doubt. And before I forget, switching back a bit, another disciple of Freud who's of a special interest to me and who I recommend all listeners to check out is Wilhelm Reich, or Wilhelm, I suppose it would be in German. Wilhelm Reich, Reich is the last name. He studied under Freud and decided, like I did, that Freud was kind of full of it. Freud was off track. Freud was dealing with a certain clientele, wealthy women in Austria who had neuroses. They were highly neurotic, but his model had limitations. And Wilhelm Reich agreed. He went off on a tack completely unexpected and unique, as far as I know, amongst psychologists. He proposed that life energy, which in Eastern discipline would be chi, and breath is prana, he said these forces translate physically, so what I'm talking about is in terms of physics, as what he called orgone. Orgone. And he invented a discipline called orgonomics. And that was the name of his first book, Orgonomics. And the idea behind orgonomics is that as children, we have this boundless energy. And when we hit puberty, that boundless energy becomes sexual energy. So far, we're tracking right along with Freud. But here's where we split. According to Wilhelm Reich, society beats out of us. Remember how school beats out creativity? He said society, and he meant really Christian society, beats out sexual force. And that's why those women in Vienna, Austria were so neurotic. They weren't getting it on a regular basis. That's my personal theory. And Reich, I think, agreed. He looked at the cases and he went, you know what? These women are sexually frustrated. So he started to develop devices that would increase orgonomic energy in a human being and restore atrophied, wasted away levels. And he said to build any orgonomic device, it's simple. You layer organic and inorganic materials. So, for example, he constructed blankets, orgonomic blankets, that were layers of sheep's wool with layers of steel wool.
Well, that's an odd combo.
So sheep's wool is organic from an animal, and steel wool is a mineral. So one's organic, one's inorganic. And he would put, 4 or 5 layers of this. You can read about this if you research Wilhelm Reich. He made blankets, and he had women, mostly he treated women. I guess the men were out working, so the women had time on their hands. Remember, this is in the 1950s now. He was treating women who were expressing frustrations and neuroses as they had been doing with Freud, but instead of putting them through years of psychoanalysis, he put them under a blanket, and sometimes he would run a mild current through, but it wasn't even necessary. And he had such success with that treatment, he built an orgonomic chamber, a room, where it was constructed with layers of limestone, which is organic, made of sedimentary rock, old rotted roots and vegetative matter that is way old, but it's still organic, and then granite, which is inorganic. And it turns out that's the construction of the Great Pyramids of Egypt.
Oh my gosh. And we are breaking right here because we are going to continue this conversation. Ba, ba, ba. We will be right back. 2 minutes, guys.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.